to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time!
3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Come on, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop!
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along, joined by Dylan Sinn from the Fort Worth Journal-Gazette. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jim, as always.
It's always a fun time. Lots going on, and of course, lots of basketball going on. The Big Ten last night, lots of action as the race is actually a race, man. It is fun coming down. Michigan State and Purdue going at it last night. Michigan State, their schedule is backloaded, man. It's the heaviest load is coming up, and I didn't think that they were going to really be able to sustain a run through this, but they went to Illinois and it got a huge win, and now the win over Purdue last night. They're in good shape, and Purdue may have been eliminated from this race.
Yeah, that was kind of how I looked at it coming into the game last night. That was an elimination game. Whoever lost that game was kind of be at a really tough position. And I think Purdue is. They've lost 3 in a row here at the worst possible time, and so it's going to be tough for them to climb back into it. They're 2.5 games back with 4 games to play now, so they're in a tough spot. Michigan and Michigan State are the top 2 right now, and they play each other twice down the stretch here. They have not played each other yet. They will play each other twice down the stretch of the season. So Wisconsin is also somewhat in the mix. They blew out Illinois last night. Illinois was suffering from the flu. I believe they had several players who were sick. So those are the top 3 right now: Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and it's coming right down to the wire here.
Yeah, and how about Wisconsin, a team that has just inched their way up slowly but surely? They have put themselves in the Big Ten title race picture.
Yeah, absolutely. They have improved significantly. I mean, they blew out Arizona in the non-con, and then people kind of forgot about them a little bit. But they are right up there. They beat Purdue at Mackey on Saturday. They played really, really well against Illinois last night, and so they're only like a game and a half back now, I believe, and they're playing very well. The John Tonje, their transfer guard, is Big Ten Player of the Year candidate. He's scored 30 in the last 2 games in wins over Purdue and Illinois, so really, really good stretch from him. And they're beating everyone right now. So they lost to Michigan earlier, so Michigan has the tiebreaker against them in the race for the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. But it's anyone's race right now among those top 3.
Quick congratulations to one of our great longtime sponsors, Cheryl Sizemore, awaiting her granddaughter to be born any moment. So congratulations. And your new commercial is done, so you should be doubly excited. Got that finished yesterday as well. So looking forward to that. But yeah, the Big Ten has been fun as far as the race goes now, man. It turned into one, and then you've got Michigan, Michigan State. Unbelievably, they play each other 2 times in the span of, I think that they only have 4 or 5 games left each in league play, and they play each other twice in that span, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, and like you said, talk about schedule being backloaded. That's what it is for both of them, because they both have matchups against each other in like you said, a 5-game span. Michigan has 6 games left, I believe. So they're 12-2. Michigan State is 12-3, so they have 5 left. And yeah, it is just we're going to get to see those teams on the court together in quick succession here, once in Ann Arbor and once in East Lansing. which is kind of a quirk of the Big Ten schedule. Like you said, that's one of those protected rivalries that you get to play twice every year, but they haven't played yet. So we'll see how that plays out. But the Big Ten couldn't have set it up better had they known that the season was going to go this way. So real nice twist of fate for them, and we'll see how that plays out down the stretch of the season. But it should be fun.
And for Indiana fans, I don't see any NCAA chances remaining personally. I know that they're probably not mathematically eliminated, but even if they were to beat Purdue, I just don't know that there's enough left unless they were to go undefeated, run the table and win a couple games in the Big Ten. But that's not something I see happening. But for the most part, I think that they are eliminated from the NCAA, other than technically.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I've thought for a little bit they need to get to 10 conference wins to have a chance, 10 in the regular season. So that would require winning 4 of the last 5. And that's even that's a tough task. And I don't know if that would be enough. You'd probably, like you said, have to win maybe 1 or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. And that would be, again, a tall task. There are some brackets that have them pretty close to the bubble, actually, which is kind of crazy considering how many games they've lost here. I think it's 8 of the last 10, I believe. But they've lost so many of these games close that their net hasn't been affected too much, and it could improve pretty significantly if they win some of these games going forward. But the problem is they've kind of run out of opportunities for wins against good teams, against the best teams in the Big Ten, right? They have Purdue left, so that counts. But outside of that, there's not a ton of high level opportunities left, and so you're not having as many opportunities to get your net higher the way you need it to be. They really needed that game against UCLA in Bloomington, and they didn't quite get it done. So, yeah, you're probably right. It does involve almost running the table or going 4-1 in the last 5, and then seeing what happens in the tournament. It would be a bubble situation, even in that case, which seems unlikely at this point.
And it also seems very likely and ironic that Penn State is going to wind up in the bottom of the conference at 3-12 right now. It's a little hard to believe, as well as they were playing earlier on. But wow, you want to talk about dropping like a rock. Washington has been the worst team that we've seen all year, but yet they're not in last either. Northwestern is ahead of them at Penn State. Then there's Washington. So Indiana fans don't have to worry about making the Big Ten tournament. That's not going to happen. There's too much that would have to happen to force that issue, because you also have Rutgers and Iowa and Minnesota between Indiana and the next 3. So there are 6 teams below Indiana that in regards to that situation. So they will be playing on the first day, however, without question, but they'll be the higher seed at least.
Yeah, and which gives them an opportunity for another at least decent win, right? They'll probably be playing someone who's got 16, 17 wins during the regular season, a chance to win another game there. If they, again, this is if they finish strong in the regular season, then you're talking about you need 1 or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. And they would play someone like a Minnesota in the first round. I think the latest bracket had them as the 11 seed to start off with. But yeah, they are probably going to be, they're probably almost certainly going to be in the tournament. And because remember, for those who have not kind of forgotten since this was announced a while ago, it's going to be the bottom 3 teams in the league do not make the Big Ten tournament this year. The Big Ten tournament expanded from 14 to 15. Obviously, there are 18 teams now, so the bottom 3 missed the tournament. It does seem like Penn State is going to be one of those. So we'll see how that plays out. It is interesting because remember, like you said, Penn State beat Purdue early in the season and looked really, really good doing it. That was back in December, and not only beat them but ran them off the floor. They were up by 20 in the second half of that game, and then just completely collapsed after that. Indiana went into the Palestra and beat them, and that kind of ended their run near the top of the league, and they just really never recovered from that. So it's going to be a pretty significant race for those bottom 3 to avoid being in that bottom 3. As Tony points out here, Minnesota did beat UCLA last night, which is a huge win for Minnesota to avoid that bottom 3. So
and a huge loss for UCLA after they get the win that they had not been able to get east of the Rocky Mountains against Indiana. They get the first win that they had in like 2 years, I think. And so they get that, and the very next thing they do at home, they lay an egg against one of the worst teams in the conference. It's mind-boggling.
Yes. So that was the shocker of the night in the Big Ten last night. And honestly, it makes you a little bit disappointed for Indiana that they weren't able to get that win at home over the weekend, because they really had a chance there to do it and weren't able to get it done at the end. So obviously UCLA is not some juggernaut that you can't get. And Indiana had them and kind of let them get away. So tough one there for Indiana, but good win for Minnesota, which has won 6 of its last 9. Minnesota has climbed the conference here. They've steadily improved under Ben Johnson over the last 4 years. And they haven't actually been good in any of those seasons, but they've been creeping closer and closer to decent. And that's pretty much what they are this year. So it is going to be one of those things where Indiana might end up playing them again in the first round or early in the Big Ten tournament if it comes to that. And that would be a rematch of a game that Indiana won pretty easily in Bloomington in December. I do not think it would be as easy the second time.
Nope. And it just really, when you think about Indiana and the inability to get it done against UCLA again in the late stages of that game, boy, you have instant flashbacks to Maryland, to Purdue, and the same thing. They played the top teams of this league as well as you can, but couldn't get it done. But then they've had other games that were eggs, and it's just really, it puts their season in a nutshell, because if they win 1 or 2 of those 3 games, they're in the NCAA tournament right now.
Yeah, it really does. It's the same with Michigan, right? They had that one and let it get away. And UCLA was a little bit different because they actually executed relatively well at the end of the game. They had a shot right at the rim from Mackenzie Mbako, and he missed. They executed that out of bounds play to get him a wide open 3, and it just didn't go down. But it was at least a little bit different than Maryland and Purdue, where they just kind of gave it away at the end because they didn't know what they were doing on the court. But you're right. There were opportunities here between Maryland, Purdue, Michigan, UCLA. You get one of those 4 and you're right on the bubble. You get 2 of them, you're in the field right now. And they got none of them, despite being right in the game in the last minute in all 4. So frustrating, absolutely, for Indiana, which I've said most of the season is more talented than its record. And they have one more chance to really salvage a big win. Obviously they got the one against Michigan State, so that's good, but they have one more chance to salvage a big win here against Purdue on Sunday at Assembly Hall, and really put they have a chance to really put the Boilermakers into panic mode here, because Purdue's lost 3 in a row against 3 ranked opponents, and has not looked particularly good doing it, quite frankly. And so now you go out there, and if you win on Sunday, if you're Indiana, Purdue is in full-on panic mode, trying to figure out what's going on. Their seed line is slipping. Their Big Ten title chances are gone. And you can really put them into a rough situation while putting yourself pretty close to that kind of first 4 out, last 4 in situation. So there's a chance for Indiana to really reset some things here on Sunday, and then see where they stand. But you got to go beat a really good team on your own home court.
Yeah, I was thinking that last night, and I forgot that Purdue kind of in a I don't want to call it a free fall, but the fact that I was trying to think, when's the last time they lost 3 games in a row?
It's been almost exactly 5 years, since February 2020.
So there you go. And then you could have the possibility of putting 4 on that. That's the only thing Indiana has left to do is kind of play spoiler. They can spoil it for Purdue to have any thoughts of a run at the title this year. And I don't know if there's a lot else they can do, but they can get to the tournament and do something. But other than that, that's the only way that they can do some damage right now, in my estimation. And I've wondered how were they going to finish the season. So far we've seen them fight to try to win, to try to play well, to do whatever the things that they need to do. They just haven't gotten it done, but at least they have been trying. They haven't quit.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we kind of saw it going into the Michigan game. It was like, all right, how is this going to go? And they played well against Michigan, but they lost. And, okay, Michigan State, how is this going to go? And they played well and they won that game. So I do think it is one of those things where they have kind of, Malik Renew kind of said it was like, all right, we know the score now. Let's just go out and play really hard and try to win every game and see what happens. And I think that seems to be the mood of the locker room right now. And you could tell from the kind of the inside the locker room video they posted after Michigan State, it still matters to these guys, right? Like they were really, really excited to win that game and get it done at the end. And I think that is a sign of a team that while it hasn't been as good as people would have liked this year, it does matter to these guys to win games. And I think that is an important kind of thing as we get down the stretch of the season here is you're not just playing out the string. You're not just going through the motions. You're trying to win these games. You're diving on the floor for loose balls. You're doing it whatever you can to kind of put yourself in position down the stretch of the season. And it hasn't worked yet, but they're at least not going to roll over and try to go through the motions at the end here.
No question about that. Hey, we've got to take a quick break. We have the great Dylan Sinn with us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We've got lots more coming up. Back with it on the other side of this break when we return.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Hey, welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Glad to be along with you. Jim Coyle, as always, and joined by Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Of course, everybody's attention from Indiana is looking towards the coaching search, but not a lot that's going to go on. And I just keep telling people there's not a lot of information that's going to come out. There's not much discussion that's going to be going on because there's just nothing to talk about other than what's going on behind the scenes. And I don't expect much of that information to get out much this time around, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we can kind of go back and when everyone's hoping that Scott Dolson makes a hire as good as the one he made with Curt Cignetti, right? And what people should remember about that hire is that Curt Cignetti was not really on anyone's radar until the moment that it was kind of leaked out that he was gonna be the guy, right? Like everyone was like, okay, Carson Nettie would be a good hire, but no one thought it was going to really happen, because why would this guy from James Madison who wins everywhere come to IU, right? And so he wasn't really at the top of anyone's board. He wasn't someone who people were discussing ad nauseum. It wasn't like, oh, he's been in for an interview. We've seen the reporting on that. There were some lists of, like, some of the national guys put out lists of guys who Indiana might target. I don't remember Carson Nettie being on one of those lists. So Scott Dolson has done a pretty good job in the past. I mean, Mike Woodson, frankly, was kind of the same way, right? Where it was not.
That's because he ended up being, a surprise, shove down your throat kind of a pick.
Right. So, like, it was one of those things but Dolson has done a very good job over the years of not leaking what his thinking is, what he's doing, how the search is progressing. He runs a very tight ship up there, I think it's fair to say. And so you're probably going to see some lists at some point of guys Indiana has interviewed, especially if they come from national people. I would take those with a significant grain of salt. I don't know how many sources the national reporters have within Indiana's athletic department. From the football search, it did not seem like they had many. So I would say that take those with a grain of salt when you see them, because they'll probably be coming out at some point in the next couple of weeks. But I do think that, to Dolson's credit, he runs a tight ship and he runs quiet searches, and it doesn't really come out who it's going to be until the deal is almost done. And I think that is probably the way you should do it. Now, it's frustrating for fans. I understand it's frustrating for you and me because we're supposed to talk about it. But that's probably the best and most efficient way to do it, especially because you don't want to have a situation where you scare a guy off, right? Like, you have a deal somewhat in principle with a guy that you like, and then it leaks out and he gets spooked and he kind of backs off a little bit, right? You don't want that to happen.
So that's my thought here. Normally, I don't give much credence to people really caring what fans think on social media and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This is an instance where, because there's so much time, that I think that could impact a potential coach if it were to get out. Yes. And all of a sudden this fan base starts peppering a fan base, a different fan base in regards to their coach. That is a different situation, I think.
I think that's fair to say. It is one of those things where the lead time, especially if you have a coach who you've kind of zeroed in on behind the scenes, but he's playing in the NCAA tournament, right? And he's trying to get his team as far as it can go this season, but he's maybe agreed in principle behind the scenes to the job, and then it leaks out and Indiana fans start kind of getting excited. It's one of those things where that could get really dicey because he doesn't want a distraction, right? And so it's one of those things where you need to kind of keep a tight lid on this, especially if you're negotiating with someone whose team is still playing. And again, frustrating for fans who want to know, frustrating for you and me who want to talk about it, but it is the best way to do it for the hire and for the future of the program. So kind of working at cross purposes there, but my guess is we won't probably know anything until the middle of March or even later. And that is going to be tough. It's going to be tough to go a month without really knowing, but that is probably what's going to happen here.
Absolutely. And I've said that over and over. I'm like, man, it's just it's going to be a process because anyone that is a potential, they don't want that information out either, because they're working, they're busy, they're at another school, they're committed, they're under contract. There's just so many things. They've got a team that may be playing extraordinarily well. All of a sudden, if that information were to get out, you think that that doesn't impact the team? It does. Absolutely, especially guys that just got there. Maybe he just brought in a great group that has a lot of eligibility left. So there's a lot there, a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there absolutely is, and it's going to be one of those things where we're gonna have to. We can speculate as much as we want. We can talk about it ad nauseum. We can go over who might be a candidate, who might not, all of those things. But it's not going to be a done deal until that ink is signed and you see the press release in your email inbox saying, we've hired a new coach. Welcome to the new era of Indiana basketball. Now, I will say, once that happens, that new coach is going to have to hit the ground running, because they are probably going to need 10 new guys out of the transfer portal to fill out next year's roster, would be my guess. They are going to be a lot of guys from this team that are probably not going to be on this team next year. First of all, because there's a lot of upperclassmen. But second of all, because a lot of these guys came here because to play for Mike Woodson. Now, could they be convinced to stay for a new coach? Yeah, maybe, but I would bet there are going to be some guys who are going to move on. So the new coach is going to have to hit the ground running. Now, the portal opens during the NCAA tournament. I believe it's after the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. So it's kind of one of those things, kind of like football, where the portal is open while games are going on. So the new coach, if it is someone who played in the NCAA tournament, if they make a relatively deep run, which obviously to a certain extent Indiana is hoping they do, because that means they got a good coach. But to a certain extent, Indiana is also hoping they get eliminated early because they are going to need to hit the ground running with the transfer portal. You would hope to a certain extent that they can maybe bring some of their own guys with them, like Signetti did, but that's not as big of a roster building piece in college basketball. To a certain extent, it is. Dusty May brought some guys from FAU. Pat Kelsey brought some guys from College of Charleston to Louisville, that kind of thing. But it wasn't the main way they went about building their program. So when this hire is announced, and probably even before that, the new coach is going to have to be hitting the ground running, looking in the portal, saying, how are we going to build this thing? Because it's going to need to happen pretty fast. That roster is going to need to be flipped by probably the middle of April if you're going to have a good team next year.
Yeah, and we heard Curt Signetti talk last year about flipping the roster and how he knew that he was going to have a good team after so much, and it's a lot easier for a basketball coach to do that. But he's got to do it in a quick time and get it done. But in the era of the transfer portal and NIL, that's not a problem anymore, and especially at a program like Indiana that offers the resources. The NIL resources that they do. So that's something that most coaches do not have to come into one of the highest NIL bankrolls that you're going to see.
Yeah, and I know there were probably people last offseason who were hanging on every word of the transfer portal and all of that. It is going to be a blitz this season. People, there's not going to be a ton of rumors and things like that coming out about the coaching search. But once that hire is made, there's going to be rumors galore about who they're adding and all of this and all of that and the recruiting trips, and you're going to be able to follow to your heart's content. There will be plenty of news about Indiana, probably late March, early April. It is going to come fast and furious. So with that NIL money, there are going to be a lot of people interested. Indiana's probably going to swing at some big fish. Whoever the new coach is going to want to make a splash. And I would expect that is going to be a storyline of late March and early April, is who can Indiana go get that's a big name. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that new coach hits the ground running. Obviously, like you said, the NIL is a big part of this, and Indiana is going to probably make some significant promises to this new coach about the NIL, and they're going to have a chance right away to back those promises up, not only with NIL, but with revenue sharing, right? Remember, revenue sharing is coming probably in the fall, but what basically teams are doing now is you're kind of signing players to these contracts that are contingent on the House settlement being approved, which is also supposedly coming in April. So we'll see. But it's all happening at once, and this is going to be a deluge. It's going to be quiet for about several weeks here until the coaching hire is made, and then there's going to be an absolute deluge of news happening all at once. So everyone buckle up for that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of comments about Kansas right now. We look at Kansas. Kansas is one of those teams that most of us expected to be and competing for a national championship this year. You've got Flory Badunga on there. You've got Hunter Dickinson on there, and a wealth of other guys that they brought in. But yet they are not looking good.
No, they're 17-9. They lost by 20 to BYU last night. They were down by 30 at one point. It wasn't what you want out of Kansas. And it might be the end of the road for old Bill Self up there, he won the championship in 2020.
Really?
Well, I that's no reporting from me, but it does kind of seem like, they won the national championship in 2022, and they have had diminishing returns every year since. It might be one of those things where he follows a Coach K or a Roy Williams or a Jay Wright out, who's basically like, this is not what I signed up for as a head coach. The game is different. I don't like it. I'm out of here.
Yeah, but here's the thing that really aggravates the hell out of me. If that happens, that would be another coach basically saying, "Oh well, hell, now that the field is level, and we're not getting an advantage by cheating, well, I'm out of here. This is not working." Nick Saban, I could go on. Jim Larinaga. I mean, get out of here with that stuff. It's like these guys that had the advantage, Mike Krzyzewski, the guys that had the advantage that people don't know about. Now that they don't have that advantage anymore, they're like, well, I built a reputation with this, so now I've got to get out. Whatever. But yeah, that's how I see that.
It is one of those things too where talent is not really the problem at Kansas this year. They had the talent there, like you talked about with Flory Badunga. Hunter Dickinson is still there. They were preseason #1 for a reason, and it just hasn't worked out, right? Now I have my own personal thoughts about Hunter Dickinson, who I don't think is a player who is particularly conducive to winning. We saw that at Michigan for a couple of years, and now we're seeing it at Kansas, where he got there and they have not lived up to expectations either season he's been there. So he's been in college basketball for 5 years, and they've lived up to expectations one of his 5 years in college. So that's part of it. I think they probably would have been better just like bringing in Flory and having him start immediately, but that's just my opinion. But I do think it's one of those things where we are seeing kind of a larger version of Indiana, where the expectations were higher and the talent is greater there, but it's the same kind of thing where the pieces don't really fit together in a way that makes a ton of sense. I think that's kind of the problem that Indiana's had, is there's a ton of talent there and you can see it, but the pieces don't fit together. They don't mesh in the way that you would like. And now part of that's on coaching for talent evaluation and player development, and just your job as the coach is to put everything together and make it fit. And it just hasn't worked. And I think that to a certain extent falls on Self's shoulders as well.
Oh, there's no question about that, and of course it does. And it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to battle back, because you've got a lot of guys out there, a lot of younger coaches who see these opportunities to compete with these bigger names now. And speaking of which, let's say that Dusty May turns the IU down, whatever, it doesn't work out. Where does Indiana go next? I really, that's my question, is where would they turn next immediately after Dusty May? Who is going to be that second call?
That's a good question. I will say one thing that Indiana needs to hope is that we're talking about Kansas here. They need to hope that Kansas starts winning, and they need to hope that North Carolina starts winning, because Indiana does not want to be in a coaching market that also includes Kansas and or North Carolina, because both of those coaches, Self might retire at the end of the season. Who knows, right? He seems like he might be playing out the string there in a way, like the way we talked about with Indiana earlier. But Hubert Davis is on the hot seat in North Carolina. Indiana wants to be the big fish in this pond, right? It would behoove Indiana to be the only blue blood or quasi blue blood, whatever you want to call it, on the market this offseason. So that is something to watch if you're an Indiana fan. I don't know who the next call is going to be after Dusty May. I do think a call, and we saw this the other day, I think Mick Cronin is going to get a call from Indiana at some point along the road here. And it seems like he would be receptive if Indiana called, based on what we saw at the end of that game against UCLA, where he was asked about it and he said, well, I'm not going to comment on it. And then he proceeded to comment on it pretty significantly. But he basically made clear that he thinks that Indiana is a job on the same level as UCLA. And on top of that, it does not really take a whole lot of reading between the lines to come to the conclusion that he does not think his position at UCLA is particularly solid. And if you are a coach of his stature who would rather not be fired at some point, if a team like Indiana calls, you probably want to listen, right? First of all, he's a Midwest guy. He was at Cincinnati for all those years. I don't know. He hasn't seemed to really have taken to the West Coast too much. So he probably more comfortable at Indiana, but he wins. He's been in the NCAA tournament 12 of the last 13 years it's been held. And then this year they're probably going to make it. So that would make it 13 of the last 14. So my guess is that there are going to be some good, like Indiana is probably going to hear no several times along the line. I think it might get to Mick Cronin, and I think he might be the first yes they hear. Now the question is, do they want him? Is there someone better they can get? I don't know, but I bet they get to him at some point.
Yeah, my only question on him is his buyout. I believe his buyout is up there, kind of stuffy. I wouldn't imagine a buyout of $8 million or over $8 million would be a go for Indiana. That's just my thinking there. But because of all the other, because you're going to add a little, Indiana has to buy Mike Woodson out. And then that doesn't include the assistants and all of that. So you're looking at probably $10 million for that. And then if you have to pay another $8 million for a buyout, now you're looking at $20 million just in buyouts.
Yeah.
Just to get started. And that would put Indiana at around $80 million just in buyouts spent over the last decade. $80 million.
With Woodson, I believe they can spread the buyout over time, so they wouldn't have to pay it all up front. And they're almost certainly not going to have to pay him the full $8.5 million that he is technically owed. I would assume that because he announced he's retiring or resigning or whatever it is, they're not going to have to pay him the full buyout. They'll probably negotiate it kind of like they did with Tom Allen. It would be my guess. And then they'll probably spread it over some time. So I think that helps a little bit. The problem is that most of the coaches you're looking at here, like the coaches that people want, have pretty significant buyouts. And I think that like obviously Dusty May is a notable exception, right? But I do think that most of the coaches you're looking at here, if we're talking who's the call after Dusty May, if in the event Dusty May says, no, I'm going to stick at Michigan, then who's the next call? Most of those guys have pretty significant buyouts. I would bet that Indiana is talking about, hey, what is the highest level we can go? I think if it's around 10, I think they'd probably be able to stomach it. Now, if you get to 15,
and that's where Mick Cronin is.
It's probably the highest they would like to go, but I think that's a level they could probably get to if they think it's the right guy. Would be my guess. Now, 15, 18, TJ Otzelberger, if that ends up being what TJ Otzelberger is an interesting case because we don't really know what his buyout is in terms of his contract that he signed in December. He signed an extension in December. We don't know what it is. They haven't released it, and FOIA has not gotten through yet. But if it's rumored that it's 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, that might be a little rich for Indiana's blood. So we'll see. But I continue to believe that if they have a guy they believe is their guy, that they believe is the right coach to lead them into the future, they are not going to let money stand in their way. But we'll see on that. It's to be determined for sure.
Yeah, it's a shame that it's come down to that where they but you can look at it one way. They would have had to add on another $4 or $5 million last year had they made this move with Mike Woodson. His buyout this season would have been larger, but like I said, like you mentioned, they could have spread that out, which they can over the course of 8 seasons or 8 years afterwards, and at $1 million a year. So that's what would matter there. But yeah, a lot of names. There are a lot of names out there, whether it's Grant McCaslin at Texas Tech. He's got an $8.4 million buyout.
Yeah.
Brownwell, the Indiana native, Evansville native, former teammate at Evansville Harrison High School with Calvert Chaney. His buyout is in the 10 to 12 range.
Yeah.
Buzz Williams, I don't think we really know what his is.
It's high. So here's one thing I'll say. Those Texas schools with McCaslin and Williams, I'm skeptical of those because those schools have a lot of money. They have a lot of money to throw around, and it seems like they're pretty committed to being good at basketball at those schools right now. I would bet that anything Indiana offers those coaches, that those schools would match it. McCaslin especially, I think, is going to be tough. I know that he's a name that people like, and quite frankly, I do too. I think he's a very, very good coach. But he's been in Texas almost his entire life. He is a Texas guy. And I think Texas Tech would probably try to match anything Indiana would give him. And if it does, then why would he leave? Because I know it's Indiana. I get it. But he has lived in Texas almost his entire life. He's built all of his connections in Texas. That's the recruiting territory that he knows. And I find it hard to believe he would leave. Kind of the same with Buzz Williams, where Texas A&M is swimming in cash. They are so wealthy down there. I find it hard to believe that Indiana would be able to pry him away because Texas A&M would just say, what is Indiana offering? Sure, you got it. That kind of thing. So those Texas ones, I'm a little bit skeptical of, despite the fact that I think they're both good coaches. I'm skeptical Indiana can get those guys.
I agree. But however, on the other side of that coin, Mississippi, that state does not allow contracts larger than 4 years. So no basketball, whether it's at Mississippi State or Mississippi, whatever, those coaches' contracts are only 4-year contracts. So therefore that mitigates the buyout. It keeps it down lower, which is fortunate for anybody looking at those guys. But I would think that's a disadvantage to those Mississippi schools.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's one of those things where they've lost coaches before. I mean, even in football, Ole Miss almost lost Lane Kiffin to Auburn a couple of years ago, and that was part of it. They had to basically give Lane Kiffin a really, really high per year salary because they couldn't give him a long-term extension. So it is one of those things where it is a disadvantage for these schools. Now, part of it is because they don't want one coach getting too powerful, right? Like you don't want someone becoming like Nick Saban, where he basically runs the school and runs the state to a certain extent. But it does hurt your competitiveness on a year-to-year basis. So it is one of those things to look for as well.
All right. Do you have a favorite that you think winds up just you have a gut feeling?
I think Cronin. I would not be surprised if you told me in a month that Mick Cronin is the coach of Indiana basketball. I think it would be a good hire. I am laying down my cards on the table. I think Mick Cronin would be a good hire. I think it would work.
Well, I agree with you. He's one, and UCLA does not have the NIL resources that
he has made that clear. He has made that clear. He has talked about it in public repeatedly that he is not happy with the way NIL is set up there. Now, they did a little bit better this offseason. He complained enough that they gave him a little bit more, but it's not what Indiana can offer as far as we know. And that's why I think that he would take it if offered.
And if he actually even knew what Indiana had, besides the rumors, he would probably flip a gourd. It's because I've seen, reports where potential more addition to that next season.
Yeah.
So it's going to be crazy. But I believe that because Indiana fans want to win. Scott Dolson wants to get a winner in here. He knows that if he can secure the men's basketball program and get that headed back in the right direction, he will be sitting on Indiana's Mount Rushmore without question, because he's already done the impossible. He turned Indiana football into something. And that in and of itself was an impossibility. But now you've got to bring back Indiana basketball, and that would be huge to have both of those sports going at a small school like Indiana. That would be pretty staggering.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is one of those things where he has done a pretty darn good job as the athletic director, not just in those sports, but like all the other sports Indiana has are running pretty well right now. You get men's basketball turned in the right direction, you're here for you're sitting on lifetime contract status if you're Scott Dolson. So if he nails this hire, he is going to be in very, very good shape at his alma mater, right? Like, this is where he wants to be. So he is one good hire away from really being in good shape going forward.
Absolutely. Well, brother, what's up next for you?
Yep, I will be in Bloomington on Sunday for Indiana-Purdue. Really looking forward to that. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere Sunday afternoon. And Indiana can really, like we said, put Purdue in a really tough situation here. So one win for the Hoosiers, and you start to feel a little bit better about the rest of the season.
Absolutely. The great Dylan Sinn joining us from the Journal-Gazette. Appreciate you as always, brother.
Absolutely, Jim. Thanks for having me on, as always.
We'll see you this weekend. More coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Back with more and after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along and appreciate it, no matter where or how you're listening on one of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN The Ref in Evansville, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB, the voice of the region. And in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Just keep it locked right here throughout the day, no matter where you're going. You've got it in the right spot. Great conversation with Dylan. The Indiana-Purdue game this weekend. A lot on the line for Purdue. Like I said, they've lost 3 in a row for the first time in 5 years, and a 4th straight loss is a possibility. As Indiana nearly beat Purdue in West Lafayette, this would be one of those things that gives some saving grace to Indiana's season, but they also have some quality games remaining in Oregon and another one that still keeps Indiana hanging on here. As you heard our friend Robbie Hummel say that yesterday. I know that was a little more Big Ten talk than it was reality, but the truth of the matter is that possibility still lies there for Indiana. So we'll see how that works out. The Big Ten overall itself as a conference, the standings right now, of course, Michigan standing at the top alone at 12-2 with Michigan State hanging in. And they play 2 times. This is going to be, you want to talk about the Big Ten setting up a race. It couldn't have been any better with Michigan and Michigan State playing each other twice in the final 5 games, separated by half a game on the leaderboard. And a big shout out to Greg Gard in Wisconsin. They are now in 3rd place in the Big Ten, in front of Purdue, a half a game ahead of the Boilermakers, who have lost twice at home this year. Boilers have. They're 5-3 on the road. So there's that. You got that going for you. Maryland has jumped up and played well. Robbie Hummel talked about the Terrapins, and he's right. They're in 5th place right now. And then UCLA, kind of a back and forth. Illinois lost their big forward, Johnson, and that's going to make a difference, I think, for the Illini, as they still have Jokashanis and Ivisic, but that was a big piece that they lost. Ohio State is going to manage to stay in there all the way around. So let's see. We've got a little bit more to go here before we hit our next break. We're running a little bit behind today. Kyle Neddenriep will join us in the next segment and get us caught up on the IHSAA as the boys are getting closer and closer to tournament time. The girls are in tournament time right now. But it won't be long before it all starts. And it starts with the Indiana High School tournament. Boom. Once that happens, then the college conference tournaments are all going. And then the NCAA tournament happens. And it's just like bam, bam, bam. And we get fed all of that for weeks and then nothing. It's like being force-fed the best food of your life and then having all the food shut off for the rest of the summer. At least Indiana fans and have spring football to look forward to this year. And then football in the fall, which is not something that had been the custom for these fans. But Scott Dolson has a big decision lying on him, and like I said, but if he gets this done, he is going to put himself on the Mount Rushmore of Indiana athletics after having turned Indiana football into something that it was not, which is good. So it's going to be, and I think he gets this job done. I really do. I know he knows how important this is. The last time around, it's not that he didn't know. There was just too much going on, too much involvement of others. That will not be the case this time. And I think because of that it happened the previous time is one of those reasons why it will not be happening this time around. There's been a lot of chatter about that. So he's going to be left to do what he is supposed to do, what he is charged to do in being the athletics director of Indiana University. So he's going to get that opportunity. Andrew pointing out UNC, Kansas, UConn, all performing below expectations. Definitely true there, without question. And UConn's still battling. They're just not the two-time national champion that they were. So it's easy to see them go down. But UNC though, although they have not had a great year, they're on the cusp of making the NCAA tournament. So I wonder if that happens, does that change their fortunes as far as a coaching search? I haven't really followed North Carolina other than, pedestrianly. And so I don't know how deep they are into not being happy with Hubert. If he makes the tournament, is that enough? Because I know they're close. They're on that Mendoza line. So we'll certainly find out. But it'll be interesting to see because I was a little surprised to hear Dylan mention that Kansas could possibly part ways with himself. I just don't see that happen. Didn't he just sign a gigantic contract within the last year or two after he got away with cheating? Which, we can all complain about that now. Everybody gets to do it. And it was definitely happening. So it's weird how you look back at things. Indiana fans have this great disdain for Kelvin Sampson, which I really don't understand because we're talking about some stupid phone calls here. He wasn't buying players. He wasn't doing the really dirty stuff, bringing players' parents in and putting them up moving them from an $800 a month home to a $5,000 a month home while he played college basketball. Yeah, that happened to Duke. So, congratulations to one of our favorite sponsors, Cheryl Sizemore. 5 pounds, 13 ounces, 18 inches long, Journey Lynn Bailey. There you go. Our first ever announcement of a new baby on the show. So congratulations to Cheryl Sizemore and her granddaughter, I believe. Yes. So awesome. That's fun to always get to do. Perfect timing, too. Just in time. Take us out on the break. So Journey Lynn Bailey takes us to our next break as we'll have Cal Neddenriep joining us on the backside. From the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, back with more right after this.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. And now we are joined by our good friend, Sir Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. How are you, sir?
Good, Jim. How are you?
I cannot complain. Just waiting for this snow to get the heck out of here, man. I thought we were done with that stuff.
It's been a long winter. There's no doubt about that. Hopefully,
yeah.
Weren't the baseball teams supposed to play home games this week?
Yeah. I'm like, how do they ever even think about planning that stuff? I'm like, in February, are you kidding me? Do you not realize where you are? I didn't even, baseball was not even on my mind as a kid in February.
Not in the Midwest for sure. Yeah. You got to be south. You got to go out of town to play. But yeah, I woke up this morning and we got more snow down here. We've had snow pretty much on the ground except for maybe 10 days since the first of the year.
Yeah, we were supposed to get another couple of inches, and I assume we did. I've not been out of the studio to see yet, but we'll certainly find out. But I think that the warmer weather is on the way, luckily, and it's certainly heating up in the Big Ten. I've talked about that earlier. The Big Ten race is fun if you're a Michigan State, or even a Wisconsin fan. Purdue, not so much, as they are slowly sliding out of that contention now at 2.5 games behind, or a game, whatever they are, 11-5, while Michigan is 11-2. So 2 games back. I don't know. I can't do the math.
It's 2 overall, but 3 in the loss column. It's hard to get those back.
Yeah, it certainly is, especially when you only have
5 to go,
4 or 5 games to play. Ironically, Michigan State played each other twice in this short period of frame. That was some great scheduling by the Big Ten.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Michigan State, Indiana beating them becomes the story that end up costing them the championship.
Yeah, so it's amazing that Indiana, and they can still play spoiler. They can play spoiler with Purdue to really put a complete quash on any hopes that they might have, not only on their Big Ten title race, but this is costing them a seed line.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting that I think before the season, it was considered fairly wide open. What a lot of people are still picking Purdue, I guess, to still win, and Indiana was in the top 3 or 4, and Michigan State, I guess, was up there. But Michigan and Wisconsin not considered to be up there. Wisconsin took a tremendous hit in the transfer portal, and Greg Gard doesn't get enough love or respect for what he's done because they're really good. They're up to the top. They're in the top 10 in Ken Palm ratings, and they've had some impressive one-sided victories recently.
Yes, sir, it is. And Indiana has, ironically, they have played Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Maryland, and UCLA, for that matter, all very well. Could have won those games. Wisconsin's one that is in there that they couldn't have. But other than that, they have played the top of the lineup extraordinarily well. Could have won some of those games. Could not get it done. And that's been the difference between Indiana's season, to be honest with you.
You're right. There's 5 games decided by 5 or less in that stretch, and they didn't get any of them. A couple of them came down to the last minute, last possession. Comes down to leadership and point guard play. When it comes time, you got to have somebody who can make plays at winning time. And they haven't had a guy be able to do that, whether it's missing jump shots or messing up out of bounds plays or whatever it is. They just consistently fall short, which amazing though. I looked on Lenardi yesterday when he came out with his bracketology though, and Indiana's still only 5 spots below the cut line, which if they beat Purdue, I figure they'd have to jump up a couple more spots.
That it continues to blow my mind. Robbie Hellman was on with us yesterday, and he said that the very thing. Well, I think Indiana still has a chance, and I'm like, hey, what are you smoking, man? But truthfully, they do, because you have that Purdue game, but you also have an Oregon game and an Ohio State team that is firmly entrenched in making the NCAA tournament. Although they are under 500 in the Big Ten. Overall, they're only 15-11, but they've got a net ranking of like 2.
Yeah. I mean, what's going to come back and hurt Indiana, though, is they don't have any quality non-conference wins. I mean, they might get in. It'll be a play-in game if they do get in, and they're not going to know they're in until till Selection Sunday, unless they have some remarkable run in the Big Ten tournament. But if they beat Purdue, then it's a discussion. Until they beat Purdue, it's kind of a fantasy.
It seems to me that this season obviously has not gone as well as, say, last season did, but they are closer to making it this year for some odd reason. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of bad teams out there. I mean, look at the ACC. There's the bottom of the ACC is not very good. The bottom of the Big East is not very good. And it's so heavily SEC oriented with them getting 13 teams in the league. Even I don't think the Big 12 is as strong as it's been in recent years. And we saw evidence of that with Kansas getting smacked again last night. I read an amazing stat that Kansas, this will be the first time since the year 2000 that Kansas won't be at least a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. How's that for consistency?
Shocking. And of all time, why not? Why now? Then when they should be at the top.
They got Hunter Dickinson. They got Wisconsin's former best player. They got all kind of dudes. They got Flory Badinga. Yeah, it's just not working.
Well, and I was talking with
BYU beat them by like 30 something last night.
So is there any chance that Bill Self, didn't he just sign a gigantic contract extension within the last 2 years?
Yeah, I don't know. He's only 62. I think he'll quit yet.
See, I don't either. And that was a discussion earlier today. But Kansas, man, this is the latest team that in this era where it's all equal now. Everybody can become somebody. And teams like Kansas and Bill Self, they're not used to this. They're like, wow, this is much harder than it was when we were the only ones being able to pay players. It's not so fun anymore. So it is great for college basketball, though. But I still think that people they want to see the Kansases and the Indianas and the Kentuckys and the North Carolinas be good, but will that eventually just go away with the equality?
I don't think so. As long as those individual programs have the pressure put on them by their fans to succeed, I think those programs will always be strong contenders. That's a lot of ways what separates some of the top programs from the other ones, where the fan bases don't accept mediocrity. Although I say that knowing that Indiana's been mediocre for a while, they keep trying to change coaches and fix that. But it's like when the fans finally give up on it, then you might slip back.
And there is plenty of chatter about the IU coaching position, and there will be nothing but chatter about the coaching position for weeks, because I've said it numerous times, there's nothing that's going to change and nothing that's going to come out. It would not be good for Scott Dolson if any information did come out. And so he is going to work extraordinarily hard at that, I think, at doing that. But it all hinges on Dusty May. Whether he says yes, whether he says no, that opens up a Pandora's box of, okay, now what? Well, now where do we go? Is it Mick Cronin? Is it Ben McCollum? Is it the guy from Texas Tech? There are so many different names out there that offer different looks, younger, up and coming, more established. Indiana is going to have a lot of options, I think, this time around, more than they had the last time.
Yeah, last time I remember that was 2021, right? And that wasn't that the year we're coming out of COVID and there weren't like big crowds? There weren't any crowds, hardly any crowds in the stadium. And for whatever reason, as we know, there was a razor sharp focus on Brad Stevens, and then it went to, depending on who you believe, it was Thad Matta next, or it was Mike Woodson next. I think back to the time when Archie came. He was hired. I was in Memphis covering Kentucky in the regional, and they got beat by North Carolina. North Carolina went to the Final Four, so we didn't know. It was like the Monday of Final Four week when that broke. So I think we'll be a week or two into the NCAA tournament before we really know anything. Because the odds are you're going to get a coach who's going to be in the NCAA tournament, and then he's going to need a day or two after the tournament's over to tell his people he's leaving and all that stuff. So I don't know. The only thing that I've learned, and I think it's been reported elsewhere too, is that they are using a search firm, Turnkey, which is the same search firm they used when they hired Coach Cignetti. And I've talked to people who said it's a highly rated search firm, and that's a wise thing to do. It gives you a chance to. People don't really know who you're talking to or who's talking to them and all that stuff. But we'll see where this goes. It's the same list. The only name that's been knocked off the list so far is what? Brad Stevens?
Yeah. Chris Beard's on the list, but I don't know how on the list he really is. He's like a dangling Chad.
Yeah, if you believe people, there are people that steadfastly say that he's a non-starter. There's no way IU will hire him because of his background. And that might be true. But I don't know. We'll see. Seemed like in the last week, maybe Greg McDermott and Buzz Williams gained a little bit of juice. I don't know.
Well, and Mick Cronin, Dylan Sinn was on with me earlier, and he thinks that he would not be surprised at all that if in a month or 6 weeks from now, Mick Cronin was the coach at Indiana. Obviously,
why does he does not? Why does he?
Well, he's not happy at UCLA. Number one, the NIL situation out there sucks, right. And so you've got
their crowd's not very good. They're only drawing like 6,000 a game.
And he's a Midwest guy. He's from this, as you know, he's from this area, or from he coached at Cincinnati. He's very familiar with Louisville. And this is more of an area that is drawn in. Plus, it's Indiana, and he knows, I think, that it's a sleeping giant waiting to be awoken with all the resources they have. But as we've seen, North Carolina, Kansas, not doing all that well. They have great resources as well. So you can put it all together, and it doesn't always mean it's going to be kumbaya. But I think he would probably like a shot at a program like that.
Could be. I mean, Mick's a really good coach who was trained by two of the best coaches in the business. First, Bob Huggins at Cincinnati, and then Rick Pitino at Louisville. And he went to Murray State, which is a job that a lot of coaches have won at. And he won there and quickly moved on to Cincinnati. He was at Cincinnati for a long, long time, had decent success, not great success in the NCAA tournament. And then he got the UCLA. What was he, maybe the 4th or 5th pick? I mean, he was way down the line. And he's done well there. I like Mick. I think Mick would win at Indiana. But the thing that always comes back to with Mick is I think the buyout's $10 million or a little bit. It's going to be $10 million as of April 1st or something. That's,
yep.
I don't know if IU's into paying $10 million to get a coach.
I think that unless there's only a couple that they can get, that won't be at least $8 million. I mean, Dusty May is one of those that's Chris Beard's one of those. There's a few others, the lower names, but you start getting up to Buzz Williams and those guys, they're up there between 8 and 12 million between there. So I think they're going to end up having to pay this time around, which that's another, I don't know how much of a factor it is to be honest with you, because they'll, after they buy out Mike Woodson, they will be up to around $60 million in buyouts over the last decade. 60 million. It's just
now what is that? Is that Crean, Archie?
Yeah,
Woodson,
Crean wasn't much, but
Tom Allen,
Archie Miller, and yes, and Tom was the biggest one, and his was negotiated down $5 million. They saved $5 million off of that one. But the good thing with Woodson is they can spread that one out. But it's going to cost money. But they didn't make the decisions when they probably should have made the decisions, or the right decisions weren't made when they should have made them. So this is what it cost. It cost them on the other side. But there are so many names out there. Who are some other viable names that you think, whether it's Ben McCollum or whomever, that really have a shot? Because we look at Kentucky and Louisville, and they didn't get their first guys. And so it's likely that Indiana is not going to get their first guy, which is Dusty May.
I saw Vitale threw out Tony Bennett yesterday. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't know. Nobody ever talks about Randy Bennett of St. Mary's, but he's a little older and he's always been on the West Coast. I'm not sure that would be a good pick. Chris Johns, the guy at Mississippi State, he's a pretty good coach. I don't know if he's somebody that they would think about or consider.
He's doing a hell of a job. Someone mentioned him earlier that he has swept Ole Miss and Chris Beard this year, but he's just done a heck of a job, period. And the good thing about Mississippi coaches is Mississippi, the state, only allows 4-year contracts. So that kind of keeps those numbers down lower.
Yeah. I mean, he's considered a good coach. Chris Collins is another one we've talked about. Some people like that. Some people are immediately, saying they can't do that because he's not been a huge winner, but you have to put it in the context of where he's been. I like his personality. I think his teams play hard. There really isn't. I asked a friend of mine involved with the Louisville program to come up with the Pat Kelsey of the of 2025, and I think he named, I got to find the text message, I think he named the coach at App State and one other guy, which I don't know if IU could hire the coach at App State.
That would be that would certainly be something. But you do have a list of guys that, how about Mark Byington, which he's at Vanderbilt, formerly of James Madison, worked with Kurt Signetti, although Kurt Signetti has nothing to do with that. That would be some irony there.
He's done a good job. He plays Kentucky tonight in Rep Arena. So if he wins that game, he becomes a hotter candidate. He's beaten he beat Tennessee and Kentucky in Nashville. So I don't know enough about him to know how good of a coach he is, but again, I mean, that's not really any different than some of these guys that moved last year. Is a guy going to walk away from a Power 5 job in the SEC after one season? I don't know. Some coaches just aren't going to walk away from something like that in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, and Indiana is still a draw. Don't get me wrong. It's not the draw that it used to be, probably, because you can do it anywhere now. But Indiana does offer things that you can't get at a lot of other places, but it also brings some things that other places don't bring on the negative side as well. So it kind of balances out. But at the end of the day, it is a blue blood program. It is an opportunity to to breathe new life into a blue blood program. I don't know if that is a challenge that certain guys look forward to or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that anybody who doesn't look forward to that should even consider it, because it's not going away. It's not going to change. If you come in and coach Indiana, you have to accept that and you have to embrace it, and you have to turn it into a positive by being, Crean, I thought, handled it great. I mean, he in terms of being the face of the program, he did a good job. He showed up. I can remember there was a situation down in Jeffersonville where they needed to raise money for after-school sports programs. So they invited like Jeff Walls, the Louisville women's basketball coach, Robbie Valentine. There was somebody else in Crean, and he came down to Jeffersonville and appeared at a fundraiser for 2 hours and stayed afterwards and signed every autograph. There was a fundraiser once, I think at Henryville after the tornado, and he came to that and stayed forever. I mean, he got it. He considered that part of the job. You're one of the most recognizable and well-known people in the entire state. You can go anywhere from Gary to Fort Wayne to Evansville to Jennings County, and people are going to know you're the basketball coach at IU. And so that was a major part of Archie's downfall, I thought, because he ran from that. And you're not going to win that. People want to feel like they're connected to the IU basketball coach.
Oh, without question. And Tom Crean almost relished in it.
Yes, he did.
I mean, the stories of helping somebody change a tire in the snow. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy but true stories.
Well, remember when the young woman disappeared in Bloomington, Lauren Spire? I mean, he was heavily involved in searches for that. I mean, he was part of the community. He was involved in his church in Bloomington. He would go to high school events because his son was an athlete, baseball player, and I think for a while he might have even been a basketball player at Bloomington North, I think it was. I mean, he was out in the community.
Yeah, and the community misses that, but the school misses that too, because when you have someone that has that connection, it's palpable. Whether you see it or not, you see it, you feel it, you hear it, you know it. It's there, and I don't know. Is that because we're in a different era? Has that left? Has that gone away?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it comes down to personality and somebody's comfort zone and in doing that stuff and giving up some of their free time to go out and embrace some of that stuff. So you don't have to do it to the lengths that Tom Crean did it, but you can't hide from it the way Archie Miller did. I mean, he would go to high school games and he almost gave off the impression of like, don't bother me. Don't come over here and ask for a picture. Don't come over here and ask for an autograph. I don't want to do it.
He gave that same vibe off to the media.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to
me. At least he talked to Fish, though.
Well, there is that.
What's your thought? I listened to the pregame show the other night, and he sent out Isaac Green to do the pregame show.
Who is Isaac Green?
Isaac Green's like a GA, or he's like a analytics guy or something. One game before, I think it had been Calvert, they did the pregame show. Fish interviewed, I don't know whether they usually interview players or not, but on Friday night, the interviews were a student manager and Isaac Green.
What I don't understand is what is he afraid to talk about? The pregame is usually about the game.
I think he's not happy with Fish. That's what it's all about. This is
who is he not happy? Who's he not unhappy with?
I agree. But I mean, that again, I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't like fish. So
Well, of course not.
you're not gonna win that one. I mean, fish isn't somebody who goes out and attacks people. I mean, fish is as pro IU as anybody you know, but I mean, he sees what he sees, he knows what he knows.
That just shows more of the, if you don't agree with me, well, then you're wrong. Because I'm just right about everything and you're not.
It's the insecurity of the man.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, what is not unbelievable is we've got the great Rick Bozich with us. We've got to take a quick break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, and we shall return right after this. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company's studios on this Wednesday, joined by the great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving him, Rick, a follow and keeping up with all things at WDRB. They're at, how are things at the station? How's Mr. Crawford?
He's doing well. He's doing really well. So it's been a remarkable season to cover Louisville this year. They beat Notre Dame the other night and made Micah Shrewsbury very angry. And did you see his temper tantrum?
No, but I know things are not going all that well in Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was a cold, snowy night, and I don't know what the crowd was, maybe 6,000. And multiple people have told me that Louisville might not have had more fans, but they had a substantial number of fans, and they were louder than Notre Dame fans. And Shrewsbury was unhappy about that, and he ripped his fans for losing faith in Notre Dame and losing faith in him, and said they were going to get it turned around, they were going to be good, and when they are good, don't come back.
Hey, yeah, that sounds familiar.
And then the last thing he did was took his right hand, I think it was his right hand, it might have been his left, I don't know, and knocked the microphone down on the press conference table and walked away. You need to watch it.
I will. That's very un-Micah.
I know. That's what was surprising about it. The longer he talked, the madder he got. And I think from what it sounds like, he really made him mad that Louisville had more fans in the building than Notre Dame did. And I just would say to him, ripping your fans is never a good thing because people do not forget.
Nope. And when you tell them not to come back, they'll be like, okay, I can handle that. So
what do you think it's going to be like in the Ohio State game on Senior Day? How's that going to be? Because last year it didn't go very well.
Very interesting. First of all, I want to know, does Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal go through the same ceremony again?
Yeah, I would think they would. Yeah.
I mean, then are they going to become then the first two Indiana basketball players in the history of Indiana basketball to have two Senior Day speeches? Why you do that? If you've already done it, you're no longer a senior. You're a grad student. So I'm sorry, you've already had your moment in the sun. Get the hell out of the way. You did it already. I'm done.
Who
with
else will be? Hatton will be. He's a senior. Balo's a senior. Anybody else? I don't think there is there?
No, but anybody that Mike can run out there to tweet to tout his virtues as the great coach and the great reason why. Well, I don't know why what, but yeah, it gets almost embarrassing when people do things, and I'm like, do you not realize that people see through that facade? It's almost.
That happens when you don't have anybody around you who can tell you the truth and say, don't do that, and listen to them. Let me explain to you why that's not a good idea to call out real Indiana fans. Let me explain to you why one of your players shouldn't tell people they need to chill. Let me explain to you why, one of them shouldn't say we're going to run it back. They've ran it back and it's been sort of a jog back, and it hasn't been any better. And
it not only did not get better, but they still have not. I don't know that they have a set lineup right now. They still don't have. It's like, well, if this guy's around, we're going to do this. There has been so little continuity with this team out of the four, which that's saying a lot. But I'm talking about little to no continuity, and all of the guys that were supposed to be this and supposed to be that, maybe they are, but it is either they forgot how to do that, or playing at Indiana under a certain regime has taken that away from them, because the talent disappeared.
Yeah, it's definitely not the team we thought it was going to be in terms of what the record is, but in terms of how it was going to fit together. I think it was pretty obvious at the beginning of the year it was supposed to be Rice, Carlisle, Mbako, Renew, and Ballo. And a lot of people said in advance that those three big men together wouldn't work because they got in each other's way and none of them could really drive the ball, or they weren't good attacking with the ball. And two of them were low post players. And Carlisle has been a colossal disappointment, where he went through a 5-game stretch where he didn't even play. And he got in the other night and made a shot, but he's an afterthought. And now Leal's become front and center. Good, he's gotten a lot more time. Tucker early in the year I thought was going to get more time, but as the year's gone on, he's gotten a little bit less. So, you're 25 games in and you still don't know what your best team is.
It's a rather amazing. And you're still getting answers like, I wish I knew.
Or like, I'll never blame my players, but I didn't let that thing and I didn't do that. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Do you not realize how that sounds?
Nope. Without question, there's no way he does. But Indiana, that's running its course, and you've got 5 regular season games left, and at least one Big Ten tournament game. So the tenure could be just 6 games yet to play. I know Indiana fans would probably like to see. Oh, I have a question for you.
Okay.
This crown tournament that Fox is a big part of. How does the implication of being a Big Ten team that's able to play in that and receives an invitation to play in that, are you expected to play in that as a Big Ten team?
I think I've read that you can't turn it down. Your league is contractually committed to the top 2 teams that don't make the NCAA tournament to play in that tournament, and you've got to play in it. So I don't think it's an option.
Wow, since Woody won't do the shows with the Fish, I'm wondering if he'll show up for the Crown Tournament. Say, yeah, no, I'm done.
Didn't he send Kenya Hunter out to do the radio show Monday night? I think he did.
Yeah, he's still getting paid for it. And what amazes me, though, is he's the one getting paid for that stuff.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's Fantasy Island. Whatever they do with the new coach, they need to have it in the contract of this is what you will do, period.
Well, you wouldn't have to do that because most people have the sense and the courtesy to follow the mandates. But it's like he feels like he has been wronged.
Oh, he does.
He's the one that has been wronged. And it's not him that has not gotten the job done. It's not him that hasn't done what he said was going to do. It's not him that has said all the things that were going to happen, and none of that transpired. It's crazy how someone can be that lost in reality.
Well, I mean, Monday night when he was on the radio show, I believe that Kenya Hunter said if they rally and make the tournament, that means it'll be 3 times in 4 years they've made the tournament. That's really pretty good. And it's like, no, it's really not very good because you barely made it the first year and won the play-in game and got drilled by St. Mary's. You did make it the second year and beat Kent State and then got drilled by Miami. And then last year you don't make it. And then this year, if you do make it, it's going to be the play-in game. I mean, that's not the standard at Indiana.
No, and that's the thing. These guys, they either think that they're either just not going to get called out on stuff or that people are just not smart enough. I don't know which it is to know the difference between what they're saying, but it's almost a slap in the face to people when you do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lack of understanding of where you're at and what the program is and what the expectations are. I mean, or you think you're going to be able to change the narrative in your favor, and it's not going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, a lot of this, it's what's happened has been driven by the fans. I mean, the fans booing them at that Illinois game was a big moment in what's going to happen to Mike Woodson. And then the continued unhappiness after they got beat a couple of other games. I don't remember what it was, at Purdue or something. And then they came home to play Michigan. I think it's safe to say that IU didn't want another ugly incident at the Michigan game, and that was spelled out in the press release that when Mike Woodson was leaving, that's what drove the decision to be made then. So the administration gets it, that the fan base is very, very unhappy and expects more, but Mike Woodson doesn't.
No doubt about that. And speaking of the fan base and the coaching search, there is a big disconnect between who will probably get this job and who a big portion of the fans. Chris Beard is high on the fans' wish list.
Yeah, he is.
And I don't see that happening. Not to say that it couldn't happen, but I don't think that it does. But he is probably the highest of the available guys on that list, if I was being honest.
Ahead of Dusty?
Oh, so on the Hoosier.com, we ran a poll and it was shocking. I was like, wow. Dusty was like 17%. Chris Beard was at like 40.
Yeah, I mean,
for some reason, people don't think Dusty May has proven himself, or a lot of people don't, which I find that as a joke. I'm like, okay, you don't know anything about which you speak of if you think a guy who took an FAU team to the Final Four, then moves to Michigan, which was horrible last year.
They won 8
3-17
games
in the
last
Big
year.
Ten. Yeah, 8 total. And now they are leading and probably going to win the Big Ten. Pretty good. Pretty good.
So good that you're probably not going to be able to hire him because Michigan's going to give him a boatload of money and he's going to stay there.
Yeah.
So that's silly. You know, we've said this almost every week I've been on with you, but this was unfortunately mishandled a year ago. People who really had a grasp of what the situation was knew which way this was going. I think there was some encouragement to get Mike Woodson to retire. He didn't. Came out publicly and said he'd be back. Talked about he had the support from the guys at Cook and was going to get players. They should have made the move last year. Dusty was plug and play, ready to go. The recruiting probably would have turned out better. You'd have your coach for the foreseeable future.
And
now
guess where you'd probably be sitting at number 1 in the Big Ten right now.
Of course. Yeah. Because of Mike Woodson's stubbornness and the people around him, it didn't happen, and Indiana's paying the price for it.
Yeah,
went blank true, in my opinion.
Yeah, most places, if it were a business, it's so odd how business-like these things are, but unbusiness-like they are ran. If a business is not succeeding, they're going to get rid of the guy who's not doing the job, and they're going to do it when they need to do it. For whatever reason, there's this optics thing that comes into play with Indiana or whatever, and that's not there for a regular business. I don't really get that anymore. It's about winning now. I understand optics to a degree and for certain things still, but at the end of the day, you've got to put your program, whatever it is that you're in charge of, in the best position you can of doing what they're supposed to do. And that has not been the case for Indiana basketball.
I mean, for sure. Let's be honest. Last year when they got run off the floor by UConn, run off the floor by Auburn, run off the floor by Nebraska in the last game of the year of the Big Ten tournament, beat 3 times by Nebraska, beat twice by Penn State. I don't really – anybody could look at that and say this isn't working. And it's probably not going to work. It's going the wrong direction. And I guess because he still had 3 years left on his contract and he's a former IU basketball player and he had the backing of very important people, Dolson wasn't able to get it done. But that was an error.
Yes, it certainly was. What is up? Oh, also the Big Ten and the SEC, they're getting together.
Right now,
big brother meeting going to determine the college football playoffs going forward, but I don't know that anything's going to happen yet. But they're basically meeting to decide whether or not they're going to demand. Greg Sankey is in essence deciding whether or not he's going to tell Tony Petitti that we're going to demand 4 guaranteed playoff spots, which nobody that I have talked to is in favor of that. Nobody likes it except Greg Sankey.
If the SEC gets 4, doesn't the Big Ten have to get 4?
Oh, yes, without question.
So then the rest of college football gets to fight over the other 4?
Yes. Or they're going to make them increase it to 16 so they get their 4 and y'all can have whatever.
I don't know, man. It's crazy. I guess you would have to increase it to 16 and eliminate the bye games.
Yeah,
but you didn't ever think the SEC was going to accept what happened to them last year without doing something. I mean, they weren't happy.
Yeah, let's change the rules. We sucked, so let's change the rules.
What's the the spotlight and the pressure is going to be on them in the NCAA tournament because they're getting 13 teams in, and people are saying they could get 3 teams or 4 teams in the Final Four. So we'll see how they perform. They perform great in the non-conference.
They have 3 number 1 seeds right now.
Florida
really skyrocketed up there. Todd Golden, unfortunately, $14+ million buyout. He's off the table, people. Off the table. What is up next for you?
Louisville's home Saturday against Leonard Hamilton. His farewell tour comes to the Yum Center. Kentucky's got Vandy tonight and at Alabama Saturday, and the Hoosiers are against the Boilermakers on Sunday, right? What time is that game on Sunday?
That's a good question. I do not know. If I had to guess it, I would say noon, but I don't know, so don't go by that.
Okay.
We'll have to pull it up, and it take me about 2 seconds to get to that as I look and see that Indiana is heading to play. Daggone it. I wish I saw the date. 1:30. It's 1:30.
Okay.
CBS game.
Probably, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
CBS game. So the big boys. We'll certainly find out. Hey, make sure you're giving Rick Bozich a follow and keeping up with all his great coverage of college basketball. Appreciate you, sir. See you soon.
Have a great week, Jim.
You as well, brother. There's Rick Bozich. Hey, we've got more coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distillery Company Studios. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We are very fortunate that Kyle Neddenriep was able to move his schedule around and join us here to close out the show. Kyle, how have you been, brother?
Hey, good. How are you doing, Jim?
Good, sir. Thank you again very much for being flexible. Getting towards the waning weeks of the boys' basketball season as getting closer. I know the girls are in semi-state this weekend?
Yeah, semi-state this weekend, and boys basically the second to last weekend of the regular season. We have sectional draw on Sunday, so everyone will learn their path on Sunday evening.
Yeah, a busy day for you, I guess, Sunday, keeping track and laying out all that's coming up next. And but still not a lot changing. Everybody chasing one team, at least in 4A, that is.
Yeah, it's becoming more clear, I think. They've had a couple of close games. Westfield, who I saw play last night, gave them a really good game a couple weeks ago. 3-point game, but Fishers, they go to Lawrence North last night and win by 16. They were up pretty handily early. Lawrence North came back, cut it to 9, and then Fishers put them away in the fourth quarter. But yeah, everybody's sort of chasing them. The sectional draw will be interesting this year. Yeah, I'm writing a kind of a storylines to watch for the draw, this morning. But one of the things will be, where does Westfield and Fishers line up in that draw? Where does Noblesville line up? It's maybe not as deep of a sectional this year, that sectional that would be played at Carmel, but definitely some teams that know Fishers pretty well. But then once you get out of that, then it sort of opens up to maybe some teams that aren't quite as strong, but there are a few teams in the north though that Crown Point is tough, Fort Wayne is a capable team. So you got some teams up there that could give them a challenge, but you're going to go into this tournament knowing that who the team to beat is certainly.
Without question, but that's what makes tournaments great, and that's why we look for these and the upsets that happen, seasons that come to an end that no one expected to end or not end at certain times. But that's why the Indiana boys basketball tournament is what it is. And it has always been something, a glorious spectacle to watch. And it still remains that, even though it is not the one class system that it used to be. I just don't see, as much as people would love to go back to that, you would have to really be blind not to see that. Okay, yeah, that would not be capable. You can't have these 4A teams competing against a lot of these single A schools anymore. It's not like it used to be.
No, I mean the I would say the population base has changed. There's not as many schools that are kind of the same size anymore. And even if you go back and look at the Milan, it's interesting to go back and look. If you classed them back then, Milan would have been like a 3A school. There were so many small schools around that just doesn't, through consolidation and whatever, it's definitely changed, to a pretty drastic extent. So it is a lot different. I mean, it's fun, those stories from the years. I was in Clay City this week and wrote a story about Clay City being, they're number one in 1A. And they're very proud. They're the 1970, 74 team that made the semi-state and lost to Jeffersonville. That's sort of their famous team. The one class system going that far is like you might as well win. That's basically like a state championship. And there's lots of schools that have stories like that they win one sectional and that's kind of their, that's the banner that hangs in their in the picture that hangs in their gym. And that's something that's really cool and unique. But times have changed. Once they went to 4 classes, there was really no turning back to even 3 classes. I remember, it's probably been about 15 years ago. There's a 3-class proposal, and it did have some legs, but it never really got too far down the road because most of these teams, the principals and superintendents at 1A and 2A schools are not going to vote in favor of having less of a chance to win. So everyone's sort of, looking out for their own school, which I get that. That's what you probably should be doing. But once you went to 4, there was probably no turning the clock back on that.
Chris Portiana, a big-time game going on in Jeffersonville tomorrow night as Brownstown Central, undefeated, taking on the Jeff Red Devils and our good friend Sharon Wilkerson. That should be quite entertaining.
Yeah, and I've made so many trips here lately, and I'm like, there's a possibility I may still end up going to that game. I probably should tell somebody if I am, though, because I need to get in the door. That could be a fantastic game. Brownstown's a team I think people may have written off a little bit, because obviously Jack Benner was their star player last year, was runner-up for Mr. Basketball, and then they lost their point guard as well to graduation. But everyone else is back, and that's a really good team. This will be the toughest game they've played to this point, but the way they've handled their business against some other good competition has been impressive. They took Silver Creek down pretty easily, and that team beat Jeff. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that's right. I don't think Singleton was playing that game, or he's just coming back. But yeah, Jeffersonville. I watched the New Albany game the other night on streaming, and played really well, obviously, in that one. And I think made a statement in that game too. So they're a team. When you look at Fishers, and maybe the next team that could beat Fishers or would match up best with them is probably Jeffersonville. And there are some others out there too. If Westfield shoots like they're capable, they match up decently well. They're not very big though. But any team who has if you got a guy like Singleton, and nobody really does, which makes him unique, but if you got a guy inside who can kind of handle the paint, that's going to be a big factor against Fishers. And then the ability to shoot, like Cooper can shoot the lights out. So you got that as well. And teams can't really, when they didn't have Singleton, you could sort of focus on Cooper and PJ Douglas more. But now that he's back, and Singleton's such a good passer too, that makes him tough. But yeah, that to the point. Yeah, Thursday night at Jeffersonville, that should be a fantastic game.
An unusual night for a game this time of year, isn't it?
They moved it because of, for some reason, it might be because Brownstown's girls. That might be why they moved it. So, but yeah, Thursday nights, they kind of get the night to themselves to a certain extent.
Yeah, boy, if I can get down there, I'd love to go down there for that game. That would be fun to see that. And now, as we get closer to the tournament, there's nothing left for teams to do because it doesn't affect, as different in college, it doesn't really affect their opportunities coming up. It's everyone gets to go. So if you lose a game here or there, it doesn't really impact you as far as the tournament goes, only from a mental standpoint.
Mental momentum. Teams that are playing well now are, I wrote this on Monday's Monday column, but teams that are playing better than their record. There's some of those out there for sure. That's more important than your overall record at this point is kind of, unless you're like Fishers and you're undefeated, or Brownstown, it's sort of not as relevant. The Jeffersonville's case, their overall record is not really relevant to who they are now. So there's a lot of teams out there that are kind of like that. It's more of how you're playing in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 games going into the sectional, and then hopefully you carry that into but it's always different. I always feel like too, once you show up on that sectional night, it's hard to explain, but the finality of the game is very, it's you can feel it, in the intensity leading up to tip off, and it's a cool thing. The sectional week is probably my favorite week of the season because of that. You have teams who know each other a lot of times playing against each other, maybe have played twice already during the season. So not a lot of secrets and always surprises, but yeah, the finality of that is so different than the regular season that everything's a little tighter, and then you can come out and somebody shoots the lights out and all of a sudden it's 14-2 and you're like, oh my goodness. So there's always that fun of it too. And then you see how teams react to it. It's kind of always the story, but yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a fun, it's a few weeks off here still, or a couple of weeks off, but we'll be getting there soon.
Yeah, better than the back in the days of college football, man. You lose a game early on and you were done with no chance to do anything at the end of the year. What is up next for you?
Like I said, I actually have a story on Cannleton I'll be writing for tomorrow that I'm working on. Actually, I probably need to take this call right now. I think it's from a source here, but I appreciate it, Jim.
Appreciate you, brother. Kyle Neddenriep joining us on Indiana Sports Speed Radio as the boys basketball tournament heads up closer to taking off here in a couple of weeks. And that's what you got to do, what Kyle was doing there, waiting for some info on a story coming in. But we have had a blast with you guys today, and we get to come back and do it again tomorrow. We will talk some football tomorrow in addition to basketball, as Coach Shannon Griffith will be with us. And then on the basketball side of things in the Big Ten, games that are on the schedule, well, games that took place last night, by the way, we talked about a little bit. Purdue, they lost to Michigan State 75-66, 95-74. Wisconsin beat Illinois, and UCLA loses to Minnesota at home. That was a shocker. Couldn't believe that. Tonight, Nebraska is at Penn State. Oregon is at Iowa. Rutgers is at Washington. So not a lot going on there. But we're back tomorrow to talk about it all, and I cannot wait. Very, very appreciative of each and every one of you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and are grateful for the opportunity for each and all of you. You go back
Have yourselves a great day. Until tomorrow, I am Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.